Adrian had cheated. He was keeping a pure, pretty young girl, lively, beautiful, and wild enough in bed to feed his endless appetite. When the girl's taunting message popped up on my phone again, I felt nothing. I stared at the wall for a long time, then texted Adrian, "Let's get a divorce." He didn't answer, so I added a second line, "I'm pregnant." Almost exactly an hour later, Adrian walked through the front door. He stopped in the foyer, eyes locking on mine before dropping to my stomach. Dark and unreadable. I was startled by how fast he'd come. The engine in the driveway was still running. "When?" he asked. I smiled. 3 months. Adrian went silent. The pause stretched until his voice came out hoarse. "Vivian, that's not funny." I knew what he meant. We hadn't slept together in 3 years. Pregnancy was impossible. "No joke," I said, calm and steady. "Adrian, I cheated too." I expected rage, the kind that had shredded me when I found out 3 years ago. Back then, gentle, shy me had smashed every breakable thing in the house, screaming until my throat bled, demanding to know why. Adrian had stayed cool, watching my tantrum like a spectator, making me look insane. Fury had closed my throat. My heart felt torn into pieces. When it stopped, I thought I was dying. He'd panicked for a second, then carried me to the car and sped to the hospital. Stress cardiomyopathy, broken heart syndrome. So hearts really can break. Mine had been healthy. Adrian reduced it to scar tissue. In my hospital room, while I stared at the ceiling, he said quietly, "Vivian, I'm sorry, but we've been married 8 years. You're aging. I'm in my prime. Men stray. It's normal. Nobody eats the same dish forever, no matter how much they once loved it." I gaped, ringing filling my ears. I couldn't believe those words came from the man who, for 8 years, had called me beautiful, who'd described our gray-haired future, who'd soothed my age anxiety with, "Vivian never grows old. Even when you're a little old lady, you'll still be the prettiest little old lady to me. Promise you won't dump me." That boy who'd professed love at 18 had rotted. Tears blurred everything except the memory of his freckled smile. I wanted to ask, "Do you still love me?" But only a sob came out. "Don't cry," he murmured, wiping my tears with a tenderness that nauseated me. I slapped him with every ounce of strength I had. He didn't flinch. I hated his composure, so fake. When I raised my hand again, he caught my wrist. "Stop. I know you hate me, but I still love you. I can't give you physical loyalty, but I'll give you everything else." He forced me into the arms that once felt like home. Now they were ice. I shoved him away and screamed, "Get out." Friends and relatives flocked to my bedside, cursing Adrian's betrayal, until I mentioned divorce. Then they went quiet. "You built the company together," they said. "Untangling finances will bleed you dry. Let him keep college. You keep the money." "Eleanor," my mother pleaded, "think of it as being widowed. You'll still have his fortune." Even Best said, "Divorce hands Adrian to college on a silver platter. Are you willing?" Willing. I was shattered, so I hesitated. To coax me back, Adrian showered me with gifts. Custom necklaces, latest season bags, couture, a sports car, even an English manor. He flew me there for a month of horseback rides, golf, sunsets. He'd kiss my forehead at dawn and grill steak at dusk while golden light bathed the kitchen. I hated myself for softening, until the night I opened his phone. College had texted daily. Adrian rarely replied. 3 hours earlier she'd sent a selfie in lingerie. This time he'd answered, "Looks good." 2 words, and my heart seized like before. When he climbed into bed and kissed my eyelids, I whispered, "Do you kiss her eyes too?" He froze. My tears fell. "Filthy," I said, and ran to vomit. The fairy tale trip ended abruptly. We flew home in separate cabins. Back in the Malibu lakefront mansion, I turned spy, combing for clues, finding none. My anxiety twisted tighter. Adrian stopped coming home. I became the shrew I despised, screaming at empty rooms and missed calls. Then the stick turned blue. I'd wanted Adrian's baby desperately. We'd lost our first at 2, our second in a crash when I shielded him at 25. 8 barren years. 100 IVF needles, nothing. Now, when hope felt dead, life stirred inside me. Before I could decide, college texted a photo. Breasts and collarbone laced with hickeys. I retched and booked the termination procedure. I lay afterward like a mummy, ceiling cracking above me. Adrian burst in, hair wild, eyes bloodshot. "Vivian, the baby was innocent. How could you? It wasn't conceived in love," I croaked. "Children deserve more than ruins." "I love you," he said. "I don't love you anymore." Relief washed through me like cold water. "Adrian, let's get a divorce." He refused, flat and final. 3 years have passed since then. Our marriage is a hollow sculpture, shiny outside, rotten within. In the 3 years since our separation, the women around Adrian never stayed the same. The newest favorite, I heard, was a drama student at the film academy. A fresh, dewy girl, pretty, delicate, and full-figured, exactly the kind Adrian seemed to like. Rumor said he'd kept her for over half a year without trading up. The accidental meeting happened a few days ago. Quite a coincidence. At a gallery, the girl bumped into me. The hot milk tea in her hand splashed across my dress, the brown stains blooming over the apricot silk, leaving me disheveled. The damp fabric clung to my skin. The sticky warmth made me frown. She didn't know me, panicked instantly, and apologized in a rush. "I'm so sorry, sis. I didn't mean it. My boyfriend skipped breakfast and his stomach hurts. I was rushing the tea to him and didn't see you." Her face was all guilt and self-reproach, small teeth denting her rose-petal lip, eyes sparkling wet. So lovely, it was hard to blame her. The commotion drew stares. I smiled, looked past her to Adrian hurrying over, and said, "No harm done." Following my gaze, the girl spotted Adrian. Her smile froze as she heard me add, "Our 8th anniversary is next weekend. Let's have dinner." Adrian's eyes rested on me, unreadable. The girl's face drained of color. She stared at me, then at him, understanding dawning. Whispers rippled around us. "Hurt." She instinctively leaned toward Adrian like a fledgling seeking its tree, reaching to hug him, but he sidestepped without seeming to move at all. "I'll take you to the mall for a new dress and drive you home." "No need. I can buy my own. I have things to do. Won't disturb you too." The tea had been scalding. Absently, I wondered whether the baby inside me was all right. I turned and walked away. Near the exit, Adrian caught up, long strides closing the distance, fingers circling my arm. Overhead lights stretched his shadow until it swallowed mine. "Vivian, don't you have anything to say to me?" He looked down, eyes dark. "Say what?" I tilted my head, considered, and offered kindly, "Hope you two have fun." Silence. Unsatisfied. I chuckled. "Adrian, I stopped throwing tantrums ages ago. Too ugly. The monthly allowance you wire buys me quietude. See you at dinner." My gaze was calm. He studied me for a long moment, storm swirling beneath the surface, then finally let go. I stepped outside, leaving the crowded hall. The world beyond was bright and wide, the sky suddenly limitless. Leaving Adrian made the pregnancy effortless. With someone new, conception happened right away. Adrian and I were simply never meant to have a child together. I told him I'd cheated and was already pregnant, then slid the divorce papers across the table. I couldn't keep tangling with him. Too exhausting, too pointless, so I asked for almost nothing, even offering to relinquish every share in his company. I thought the deal would tempt him, but he showed no reaction, only stared with flat certainty. "Vivian, you would never cheat." I froze. Of all things, this was what he cared about. I looked at him, baffled. Why was he so sure I wouldn't betray him? It reminded me of when his first affairs began. I'd considered revenge and booked a male model. We lay on the bed, everything imminent, yet I couldn't degrade myself. I dressed and left, but not before pinching red welts across my skin. I told Adrian I'd slept with someone. He'd stared at the marks, eyes reddening, then calmly repeated the same sentence, "Vivian, you would never cheat." Why? Perhaps he knew exactly how much I loved him, and that a woman's moral baseline is simply higher. I laughed softly. "But I'm pregnant." We'd lived apart for 3 years, met maybe twice. The baby couldn't be his. His confident mask cracked, complexion blanching, lips trembling. Without adultery, how else could I be pregnant? He lowered his head, gave a faint laugh, then stepped inside, producing a velvet box from his pocket. Inside glittered a beautiful necklace. "Happy 8th anniversary. I'll be happy if you'll sign." I pushed the divorce papers closer. He never glanced at them. "Who's the father?" "Someone you don't know." A sneer. "You're that desperate to leave me. Divorce me, then marry him. What makes you think he won't cheat? Won't keep girls on the side?" I stayed silent. His voice rose. "Vivian, all men are the same." His gaze, sharp as ice, pinned my belly. "I won't divorce." He drew a breath. "Have the termination. We'll pretend nothing happened. I'll make it up to you. We start over, okay?" "No." Looking at his bowed, conciliatory figure, my nose stung under a tide of weary sorrow threatening to drown me. "Adrian, we can't start over." I only wanted out, sever every tie, but he refused to let go. I couldn't understand why he clung to this wreckage instead of freeing us both. After that ugly scene, he seemed repentant, maybe trying to compensate. Every evening he came straight home. Life felt like our early days in London, but I needed none of it. His presence harassed, disgusted me. So one day after he left, I packed, scrubbed every trace of myself from the Malibu lakefront mansion, and walked out. At the curb sat a familiar Porsche. I thought I was hallucinating. Then Julian stepped out, took my suitcase, laced his fingers through mine, and guided me into the car. Only after I buckled in did I ask, "How did you know?" He smiled gently, letting a pregnant woman haul luggage into a cab. Unthinkable. Besides, he paused. I wanted to see you sooner. My heart lurched. The man beside me was warm, refined. Sleep, he murmured. You'll be home when you wake. All right. I met Julian in the States while under Derek's care. The first time was in Derek's Upper East Side clinic. I was hunched over a coloring sheet, black clouds, a blood-red sky, a gray sea, grotesque, suffocating, almost nauseating, lost in that world. I suddenly heard a steady, gentle voice, unique palette. I jolted back to reality. A white coat had appeared at my elbow. My gaze traveled up to Julian's composed, scholarly face, meeting my swollen, obviously tear-soaked eyes. He started, apologized, produced a handkerchief, and left in haste. After that, each appointment brought another encounter. I returned the handkerchief. We graduated from nods to greetings. Nothing more, until one afternoon outside a supermarket. A random shooting erupted. When the gunfire cracked, pedestrians screamed and scattered. My mind felt wrapped in cotton. I couldn't move. Someone knocked me down. Groceries rolled everywhere. I tried to rise. Limbs numb. Useless. Writhing like a caterpillar on the asphalt while bullets whined closer. I thought, calmly, today must be my last. To die on a foreign street, while Adrian pleasured some new girl. As I gave up, a figure darted through the chaos, scooped me up, and shielded me. I stared at the grime-streaked, anxious face until I recognized Julian. A stray bullet had gouged his arm. An oral surgeon with a wounded arm can't work. He needed weeks of rest. His family was abroad, so care fell to me, only for me to discover he lived right next door. At my bewilderment he laughed. Hawthorne, you just noticed. We've run into each other several times, but you never acknowledged me. Really? I tried hard to remember. Nothing. Julian's eyes were gentle. Maybe you only know Mercer in a white coat. Now meet the private me, Julian, your neighbor, and hopefully your friend. I woke after dark, transferred from car to bed. My phone glowed with Adrian's missed calls and messages asking where I'd gone. I ignored them, padded into the hall. Julian's home mirrored the man. Clean minimalism, bright and soothing. He was mopping the floor. On the stove simmered matsutake soup, my favorite. Awake, hungry, I cooked. Your soup is ready. He seated me at the table. Mid-meal he caught me staring. My gaze rested on his strong arm. Does it hurt? He hesitated, then smiled. Not a bit. I've always felt indebted to Julian, for that ugly scar. For nursing me while I was supposed to nurse him. For feelings too fervent for me to return. That night, as I was getting ready for bed, Julian tapped on the door and stepped inside. He crouched, half kneeling, warming a pool of belly oil between his wide palms before spreading it with practiced, tender strokes over the small swell of my stomach. The slow glide of his hands sent an odd tremor through me. I couldn't suppress the tiny shiver that rippled across my skin. I lowered my gaze to watch him. His features were soft with concentration, lashes lowered, the overhead lamp laying a delicate sheen across his hair. For a second I drifted, then murmured, Julian, you don't have to do this. The baby wasn't his. He had no obligation, no need to invest such hope. Back in the States I had done a lot of thinking. One perfectly ordinary dusk I sat by a floor-to-ceiling window, staring at an orange sunset that stretched wide and calm across the horizon. In that instant the suffocating gloom inside me began to dissolve like bubbles. I started to let go of my marriage to Adrian. Quit asking why he had betrayed me. Quit doubting myself. Quit clinging to the past. Why keep drowning in mud for someone rotten? I broke the shackles I'd forged for myself. The moment the weight slid off, I felt light. Loveless was, at last, weightless. Dropping Adrian took only that single second. From then on I improved so quickly that even Derek was startled. I was launching a new life. I still longed for a child of my own, so I paid top dollar for a vial of donor sperm, started an IVF cycle, and conceived on the first try. The afternoon the clinic confirmed the pregnancy. I felt pure joy. This tiny life was mine alone. On the cab ride home Julian texted me a goofy sticker followed by, I'm off in 5. Anything special you want for dinner? I'll grab it. Since his injury he'd been housebound, and while I told myself I was nursing him, the truth was the other way around. I have no talent for caretaking. I mostly made messes. I felt useless and guilty, but Julian sensed every downward dip in my mood and soothed it. Again and again, he insinuated himself into my days, memorizing how I liked my coffee, driving 100 miles through a thunderstorm to fetch me when I was stranded, waiting on the clinic bench when I finished a session with Derek, smiling. Rough day. You did great. He walked curbside when we crossed the street, studied cookbooks to coax my appetite, applauded the smallest chores until they felt like triumphs. Before I knew it, Julian was simply part of the furniture of my life. He's single, Manhattan's favorite bachelor, and I'm not naive. I know what his attentions mean, but a woman scraped raw by marriage no longer daydreams about love. Love is too elusive. I can't answer Julian Julian's quiet courtship, so I began to back away. Adults refused politely. He noticed, said nothing, retreated to a safer orbit, yet still kept watch. I decided to be explicit. I typed, Mercer, I'm pregnant. I'm flying back to LA soon. Thank you for everything this year. I hope you meet someone right for you and have the life you deserve. Minutes stretched. He didn't reply. I told myself he wouldn't bother me again and tried to ignore the hollow ache under my ribs. Alone in the apartment, usually Julian would be rattling pans by now. I sat plotting my return, emailing a lawyer in Los Angeles to draft the divorce papers. When the doorbell rang, I opened it to find Julian in a tailored suit, tall and immaculate. He spoke at once. Vivian, raising a child alone is brutal. Let me share the load. The baby needs a father, and I need to be beside you. I know you turned me down, but let me try. Consider me. A bad marriage can make love terrifying. I get it. Still, give me a chance. You can test me indefinitely, set any bar, and only choose me when, if, I clear it, please. He produced, from behind his back, a perfect bouquet of sunflowers and a 4-inch strawberry shortcake. Congratulations on your new title of mom. Here's to your new life. Looking into his gentle, unguarded eyes, my long parched heart gave a sudden thud, and every refusal dissolved. Adrian began to hunt for me. Calls, emails, lawyers, all rebuffed. He still wouldn't sign. Unless you agree to divorce, we have nothing to say. After 3 months of stalemate, he cornered me outside a grocery store. Julian carried the bags, asking if I felt like stir-fried rice noodles for dinner. Adrian appeared so gaunt I barely recognized him, bloodshot eyes, unshaven jaw. So this is the guy you cheated with, he growled. Stare fixed on Julian's hand, clasping mine. Julian stepped in front of me. She didn't cheat. I'm chasing her, and she hasn't said yes. Adrian sneered. Pity you're chasing while she's carrying your kid. Before Julian could answer, I pulled him aside. Let me talk to him. In the cafe, I sat opposite Adrian. Julian waited in the car. Come home, Adrian pleaded. I'll forget what happened. Raise the baby. Doesn't matter whose it is. I almost laughed. I studied his haggard face. Rumor said he'd even dumped the college girl. Too late. Adrian, do you remember the year I vanished? I'd unplugged every device, holed up in New York. When he'd finally learned where I was, he hadn't cared. I was sick, clinical depression. I pushed up my sleeve, showing the ropey self-harm scars. I wanted to die every minute. How could I tell you? Interrupt you in some girl's bed so you could gloat over my misery? You wouldn't change, and I refused to beg, so I'd flown away alone while everyone thought I was vacationing, and walked the edge of death over and over. ECT currents, bitter pills, therapists, until the poison named Adrian was drained from my bones. Derek congratulated me. Julian handed me congratulatory lilies, and I stepped into daylight. Now, 5 months pregnant at 33. I'm relaunching my life. I rested a hand on my bump. I release you. Adrian, go live the life you want. Let me live mine. Let's part clean. I can't. He whispered, fists clenched, eyes red. I know I screwed up, but don't leave. I'll do anything. Same old refrain. Let's try again. I was tired, watching him. Memories of his one-time promise to love me forever flickered up. I no longer care. I asked, do you hate me? Why else keep tearing me open? I love you, he croaked. How disgusting. I'd rather you hated me. I stood. If you still love me, stop driving me toward death. Don't make us face each other in court. Outside, Julian leapt from the car. You were in there forever. I smiled. Impatient? He only humphed. Unable to admit he'd been seconds from barging in to haul me out. I'm not turning back. I soothed him. All right, let's go home. Fried rice noodles tonight. Okay. Want chili? Just a little. 2 weeks later, Adrian finally agreed to the divorce, with both lawyers watching and Julian at my side. I signed the divorce papers in one clean stroke at Los Angeles Superior Court. To make amends, Adrian gave me half of everything he owned. I took it without blinking. Only a fool leaves money on the table, and the money was mine by right. I'd refused a settlement earlier only because I'd wanted out fast. No more entanglement. When the papers reached him, he smiled bitterly. There's really no chance? Hawthorne, it's too late for that. Polite, distant. His breath caught. Then he lifted the pen and signed. The decree became final at once. Walking out of the courthouse, I saw Julian waiting at the curb. I started toward him, but Adrian called after me. His voice was hoarse. Vivian, be happy. I smiled. I will. You too. After the divorce, I never saw Adrian again. Never went looking for news. A few months later, I delivered a daughter. The baby's skin was milky white, adorable, her amber eyes sparkling. I named her Sunny. Julian bustled around us, then quit his U.S. job and opened his own practice upstate. When Sunny turned 3, Julian and I got married. He cried so hard at the altar I had to tease and coax him for an hour. Kissing my fingers, he whispered, "Thank you, Vivian, for letting me have the only thing I ever wanted. The rest of my life has been bright and calm, without without a single shadow. Epilogue, Adrian knows he loved Vivian, still loves her. Always has. He fell for her in high school. Back then she was radiant, a sunflower in morning light. He swore he would marry her and love her forever, but he broke that vow, and the flower withered. When she learned he'd cheated, she screamed. Why? He had no answer. Yes, why? Love had still been there, yet the instant he betrayed her it turned worthless. He promised her everything except fidelity. That, he said, was a detail. She still refused. Annoyed, he told her she was old. He has regretted those words ever since. She wasn't old. After all their years together she was still beautiful. It was the excuse he used for chasing younger skin. Familiarity bred boredom. After 2 miscarriages their sex life shrank under the regimen of IVF cycles, and his needs went unmet. One drunken night he slept with his assistant. Guilt faded into rationalization. Every man does it. As long as love stays. He separated love from desire, and forgot that love is not lust, nor lust the whole of love. To placate Vivian he bought her an estate in England. For a month they played at being young again, and he thought he had won her back. Then, quietly, she asked, when you slept with her, did you kiss her eyes this gently? The illusion shattered. He trembled, realizing she would never forgive him. He wanted to insist he had kissed no one else, but before he could speak she vomited, disgusted, calling him filthy. The trip ended that day. They flew home separately, and the 3-year legal separation began. She was pregnant. The child wasn't his. He knew she would never cheat, but he couldn't accept the baby, nor her demand for divorce. This time she was resolute. Panic. He was losing her. He refused. She moved out of the Malibu lakefront mansion. When he tracked her down, a tall man stood beside her, matching her smile. Jealousy clawed him. Over coffee she rolled up her sleeves, showing the self-harm scars, recounting the breakdown he had caused. The wreckage was his handiwork. His soul tore. Grief and remorse swallowed him, but restitution was too late. Let's part peacefully. Adrian, don't force me to die for this. Her eyes were calm, empty of love. He had to admit he no longer deserved her, yet he clung on, thinking that, as long as he withheld the divorce she remained his wife. He stalked her life, morning walks with Julian, daily sunflowers, baby store trips where she laughed, a thief peeping at joy he'd forfeited. One night Julian knocked on his parked window glass. For 2 weeks the surgeon had known he was watching, but kept it from Vivian to spare her. Now, while she slept, Julian came to settle the debt. Inside the car Julian spoke of her year in New York. The first time I saw her she was a rack of bones, eyes red and hollow. Clinical depression gnawed her. She cut herself just to feel something. A malfunctioning robot, numb and rotting. Once she wandered into a shooting, froze on the pavement, too dissociated to run, waiting for the bullet. She'd rehearsed giving up. Julian's voice cracked. A scar on his left arm twitched. The night he dragged her behind a kiosk and took the round meant for her. Patching her back together took more than patience. Every minute I watched for razors, for balconies, for traffic. I coaxed her toward anything still colorful, invented reasons to stay alive. Piece by piece she rebuilt herself. She walked out of hell on her own feet. So if you still love her, if a shred of decency remains, let her go. You've forfeited the right. She deserves the best. Adrian's jealousy flared. And you think you're the best. How do you know you won't become me? Julian answered, steady. I can't promise perfection. Adrian, I've loved her for 17 years. He had never told her, afraid it would burden her. He'd been her high school chemistry partner, left for medical school abroad, never forgot her. Re-meeting her in Manhattan was chance. Learning her marriage had collapsed brought only regret that he hadn't fought sooner. Now he would not retreat. Julian left Adrian in the dark car to sift through every memory of Vivian, first laugh, last tear, until dawn forced acknowledgement. She was lost to him. 11 years of marriage, 2 graves of children, 1 soul maimed. After the divorce Adrian drifted, sleepless, replaying the past. The one who once lived in the past was Vivian. Now the ghost was him. A man who betrays true love swallows 10,000 needles. Adrian lived alone to the end, certain the emptiness was his sentence. Julian and Vivian, meanwhile, were happy. Julian adored Sunny as his own. The day they married he had a vasectomy, would not risk Vivian's body again. He loved her all his life, and in the next he would love her still.